I am Adrienne, and I'm glad that you're tuned in. Maybe you are listening at the BMG Network, that's the bmgnetwork.com, or on a major podcast platform, or even watching at the BMG Network's YouTube channel. I'm glad that you are tuned in, and I like to start with a review, and I'm going to do the same today. And this one comes from someone, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. It's Liala, it looks like, Lialla. Please forgive me if I just butchered your name. I don't like to do that, but it sounds like a pretty name. And so let's read this review. It says, well-rounded. I enjoy hearing Adrienne's well thought out, thorough viewpoint. It gives me a different perspective. And I like that all of her opinions and experiences don't always match mine, because I learned something from each podcast. Liala, thank you so much for that. I love this review. Let me tell you why. This review screams maturity, because many of us don't like to hear from people whose perspectives and experiences don't match ours. But this reviewer, Liala, if I'm saying that right, is saying, I like that our perspectives don't always match. To me, that's true maturity, and that's how you have a real conversation, and you have real growth and real development and all the stuff, you know, all the stuff that makes us makes us diverse and makes us grow, you know. So there you have it. Thank you so much, and I'm going to ask others to do the same. Would you please take a moment to go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen that allows a review, and write a review, and also leave a rating, 5-star rating if you think it's worth 5 stars, and also share with other people so that they can subscribe to the Adrienne Ross Show as well. So it would be really helpful and really beneficial. You think it's a small thing? It's not. It's huge. So please do. I'd much appreciate it. All right. I also want to say that if you noticed, I did not just do my regular podcast last week, which comes out on Tuesdays, but I also did 2 bonus episodes. So please be sure to go to the BMG Network, or again, wherever you listen or watch, and take a look at why I was so compelled this past week to do 3 podcasts total rather than the one that I typically do. So you don't want to miss those bonus episodes. There's just been so much going on, and I just had so much to say. So I just kind of I just hit it. I just hit it all the way, full speed ahead. And I want to make sure that you get a chance to see or watch or both those things. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Okay. I'm going to talk about something to do with the coronavirus, something to do with the whole vaccination issue. Of course, this has been an ongoing issue, and we've had a lot to say about it. There's a lot going on with it in terms of the vaccine, in terms of mandates, in terms of lawsuits from people who are saying, you know, we're not having it. We are not going to allow the government to continue to try, the government's going to try to continue to do what the government does, but there are people, particularly private businesses, that are saying, you know what, we're not going to bow down to this unconstitutional, evil tyranny. And so there's so much that we could be talking about. Today, I want to talk about something that really has jumped out at me and has been really, sitting on me, if you will. And that is the idea of natural immunity. We've been hearing about natural immunity quite a bit. We've been hearing about the fact that these mandates don't follow the science. We know how they love to say, follow the science, and then they don't follow the science. You know, they're not following the science. There's something else behind this whole vaccine mandate evil. And they are not following the science, okay? And one of the things that you hear people say a lot is if they were to follow the science, then they would have to admit that natural immunity matters. Natural immunity matters. And yet these people who are trying to mandate, these so-called leaders, want to ignore that, even though you can't deny there's something to natural immunity. However, I'm coming from a perspective today that I want everyone to listen to, because I have 2 main points and many other points under the main points, but I have two main points that I want to talk about today. Okay. The first point I want to talk about is what I hear people saying sometimes. When, even from the beginning, when the virus came out, people were saying, when the virus was really spreading and people were really concerned and dealing with it and trying to make sense of it and all of that, people were talking about, well, you know what? The only thing that's going to work is eventually just about everybody's going to get the virus, and then we'll have, you hear people say herd immunity. You hear people say, and if I get the virus, when I get it, people would say, then I'll have natural immunity. Okay, so I'll have natural immunity, and that'll be a good thing. Not that anybody wants to be sick, I guess, but you kind of heard people saying things like that. Well, I'll get it, I'm sure. I'll get over it. Then it'll be good because I'll have this natural immunity. Okay, and then of course they started talking about started ignoring that, and it was just about mandating vaccines. That whole mess that we find ourselves in. But again, people were saying, you know what? We'll get it. We'll get over it. We'll have natural immunity. So I just want to say something, first of all, because these people made it sound like natural immunity was the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, well, hate to get it, but huge success rate, 98, 99% success. When I say success rate, I mean a recovery. And so I'll get the virus. I have the natural immunity. It'll be a good thing. And I just want to point out something, and that is that natural immunity is not the best thing, okay? Supernatural immunity is the best thing. And so, okay, Adrienne, what do you mean when you say supernatural immunity? What are you talking about? Well, you guys know I'm a person of faith. I believe the Bible. I believe in healing. I believe in God covering us. I believe in Psalm 91, which, Psalm 91 begins with, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And it goes on to say, in another verse, surely he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. And then several verses down, it says, there shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. Okay. And I know people who, throughout this whole issue with the virus, they speak this over themselves and their families all the time. They speak faith. They speak that no sickness, no plague, none of this stuff is going to come near them. Now, as people of faith, therefore, I'm saying that our confession should never be, well, I'm just going to get the virus and then I'll have natural immunity and then I don't have to worry about it anymore, because that'll be a good thing because I don't have to worry about it. That's what the science says, right? No, I'm saying, and this is not to say that people of faith haven't gotten the virus, and whether or not you get the virus is not a judge of your spirituality. I am not saying that, but I am saying that as people of faith, our confession and our expectation is always one of healing. It's always one of health. So it's not something to be desired. Okay, well, we'll just get natural immunity after we get the sickness. No, I'm believing that I don't get the sickness. And again, if you've gotten it, I'm not saying that you're not a person of faith. I am saying, however, that would be what you would desire, not to be sick, right? And that would be where your faith would stand. That's what you're praying for. That's what you're praying for yourself. That's what you're praying for other people, that we would walk in this divine covering and that we would be healthy, because that's what the Bible says. I wish above all that you would prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. So my confession is not, well, I'll get it, I'll recover, and then I'll have natural immunity, and then I'll be all good. No, my confession is, God, I'm believing and trusting that I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to stay healthy, because natural immunity might sound wonderful, but to me, supernatural immunity is even better. That's the ultimate. The goal is not natural immunity because you got sick. The goal is not to get sick. That's where our faith is. That's what we're praying. That's what we're believing. That's what we desire. That's what the word of God says. That's what God offers us. So be careful about, oh, well, natural immunity. So all, that would be good. Because no, it's nothing good about getting sick, period. But thank God that God has created the body in a certain way, to heal and all that. So thank God that's there, but that's not plan A. Plan A is to be whole. It reminds me of, I used to have a pastor who, and he would share his testimony before he came to God. He would talk about how he was just cold and he was just angry and he had been in war and he'd rather fight than eat. And he shared his testimony about, just being, drinking and things like that. And you hear other people, they'll talk about how they had certain life before they knew God, before they gave their life to God. But I heard this pastor, he had told his assistant pastor at the time, he said of his assistant pastor, he would say, he has a better testimony than I. I have a great testimony of what God delivered me from. That's wonderful. And everybody's always like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. He said, but he has a better testimony than I. You know what his testimony is? His testimony is that he never did. He never was cold-hearted. He never was violent. He never was addicted to alcohol. He was an example. He is an example of a better testimony. But that not only can God deliver you from, but he not only can he deliver you out of, but he can deliver you from. He can keep you from, I should say. He said that's an even greater testimony, that he didn't have to go through what I went through. Yes, if you go through it, God can bring you out. But isn't it amazing how God can keep you from having to even go through it? Isn't that an even greater one? And that's what I'm saying. We're talking about this natural immunity as if getting it and then having natural immunity is something to be attained. No, what we desire is to walk in health and wholeness. So be careful about that, particularly people of faith, but every one of us, because the words of our mouths. I did a podcast episode once that said the words you say are the bricks you lay. So let's change our mindset there, please. We're not welcoming this. We're not welcoming this. We're not opening the door to this. We want supernatural immunity. That's the desire. That's the prayer. Okay, that's point number one, and the points underneath it. Point number two, and this is really, really deep. So lean in closely to this. Many of us are against these vaccine mandates. Every sane person should be. Again, this is not a conversation about the vaccine itself. You grown, you do what you want. If you want the vaccine, then get the vaccine. My problem is not with people who are vaccinated. My problem is with mandating a vaccine. And it should be everybody's problem, okay? Nobody should be comfortable with government or anyone mandating that you put something in your body, such as this experimental thing, okay? This is what I'm hearing from people in terms of these mandates, which concerns me. And again, we're still talking about natural immunity. I'm hearing people, well-meaning people, say things like, no one should be mandating the vaccine, okay? People have already gotten this virus. They have natural immunity. So why are we mandating this vaccine? They have natural immunity, or they may say, I have natural immunity. So therefore, I shouldn't be mandated to have this vaccine, right? Now, you hear some people say things like, the mandate is just wrong, and they give certain reasons, like, religious reasons or medical reasons, concerns. They'll say things like, why are we trying to mandate children? They're children. I mean, the chances of them dying from that, like, almost zero. Or people who are healthy, they're in great health. Why should they be mandated to do that? You hear certain things, and those are good things. But then I hear people who say, I had the virus already. I have natural immunity. So I shouldn't be mandated. Many of these people have already had this virus. they shouldn't be required to get a vaccine. And there is the problem. Therein is the problem. When we start to say that you should not be mandated to get the vaccine because of natural immunity, for example, you're giving them ammunition. You're almost saying, it's, to me, it sounds like you're saying the people who are in the first point that I made, the people who may have never had it, thank God I've not. Well, I don't have the natural immunity, right? So if your argument is that why should people who have a natural immunity, why should they have to be vaccinated? If that's your argument, you've got a problem. Because if mandating this is wrong, it's wrong, period. Do not, we already have this division that has come about between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you can keep your job. If you're not vaccinated, you can't keep your job. If you're vaccinated, you can, go to the, the ball game. If you're not vaccinated and you can't show a card that you're vaccinated, you can't go. So there's already this division. And now I'm hearing people, well-meaning people, and what are they saying? They're opening their mouths and saying, well, you've already had it, so you have natural immunity, and therefore nobody should be making you get a vaccine. And now it sounds like there's another class that well-meaning people are in favor of. I don't think they're in favor of it, but I'm saying they need to think about what they're saying, because what I'm hearing is, well, you already had it. So now what? Now we've got more division. Now we've got the people who had it and the people who didn't have it, the people who have natural immunity and the people who don't have natural immunity. No, cut it out. The bottom line is that mandating that somebody get the jab is wrong. It's evil, period. Whether they have natural immunity or not. And in fact, whether they have a religious reason or not, objection, whether they have a medical objection, it's nobody's business. This is America. Okay? This is America. And the idea that I'm going to be forced to have something injected in me because of these tyrants, this evil and this money-making agenda is sick. So we need to stop. Be careful. Your reason for this mandate, these mandates being wrong, should have zero to do with natural immunity. We are not going to create more division. And some people are opening the way up to that. Well, they've got natural immunity, so why? No, who cares if they have natural immunity or not? That's not your reason. Your reason is that we are free. Your reason is that people, they're not God, and they should not be mandating and dictating that you're going to put something in your body that you're not comfortable with for whatever reason. And you know what? Even more than that, they should have, it's none of their business. There's none of their business, your medical history. Whether you've been vaccinated or not, whether you've been sick with the virus or not, whether you have natural immunity or not, or supernatural immunity, whatever. It's none of their business. And don't help them out to create another way to divide people. But I'm hearing it all over the place, even from like prominent conservatives. They're saying things like that. And every time I hear it, something goes, no, wrong answer, wrong response, wrong mindset. So when you use that, well, I've got, people, so many of us already have natural immunity. And that's fine if you have natural immunity. And if you're following the science, that should be respected, period. But they don't want to follow the science because there's another agenda. So I'm not saying that your natural immunity isn't a reason for you to decide not to get vaccinated. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when you're offering, period, about mandates, period, It should not be, well, why should so-and-so have to be vaccinated? They have, don't they have natural immunity? Well, what if they don't? Should they then be mandated? No. We've got to hold our ground, period, and not give any ammunition and not have this mindset that, yeah, well, I'm safe, because now the other person is unsafe and should therefore be mandated. No, it's wrong, period. And it's time to stand up against it because it's the right thing to do, immunity or not, whatever or not. And I mentioned some other things that are seemingly good reasons. They're young, they're healthy, they're they're religious, they're medical, whatever. And I throw those things out there, and they should be respected, but they're not. But even regardless, it doesn't. I shouldn't have a reason, and it certainly shouldn't be, well, I've been already sick, so now I have natural immunity. So what does that put the people who haven't been sick and don't have natural immunity? What are you saying? And many of you haven't even thought about it. But I hope you think about it now. I do. I hope you think about it now, because it's neither here nor there. So be very careful with this whole embrace of natural immunity, whether it's, we'll be better off when more people get it, then we'll have natural immunity. No, be very careful with that. We are not believing for that. We're believing for supernatural covering. We're believing and praying. People of faith, especially, I'm talking to you, of course, we're believing that no plague will come near our dwelling. We're believing that we dwell, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. So we're believing that we've got a relationship with God, and so we have every right to expect to be healthy. That's where our faith stands. Again, if you've been sick with it, not saying you're not a person of faith. Goodness, we're human. But I'm saying that's our confession and that's our faith. That's what we're believing for. So I'm not looking at natural immunity as a great thing at all, because it means I had to get sick first, and I'm not into that. Okay. And then number 2, natural immunity should not separate. It shouldn't be there shouldn't be a separation between people who have natural immunity and people who don't, in reference to this vaccine mandate. No, there should be no mandate. Period. Let's not cause more division. Okay. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, and leave some food for thought. And as the reviewer said in the review that I read, she doesn't always agree with my experiences. She doesn't always have the same experiences or the same perspective, but she learned something, and it's well-rounded, and she gets something out of it. So maybe you don't agree with everything that I said, but I challenge you. Where am I off? AdrienneRossCom@gmail.com. Feel free to email AdrienneRossCom@gmail.com. If I'm off, if you disagree, if you agree, if you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment. We can talk about it. But I wanted to leave you with that for us to think about. We've got to stand for what's right and stand against evil, period. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show on the BMG Network. And also on the BMG Network, we have other great podcasts and columns. So it would be wonderful if you go to the BMG Network, check it out, and also go to podcast platforms and subscribe, download, and share with other people. We work hard to bring you insightful, engaging, thought-provoking, intelligent, entertaining content even. All right. So I'd appreciate if you do that. And also check me out at AdrienneRossCom.com, AdrienneRossColumn.com, and AdrienneRossAcademy.com. And I will catch you next time. God bless you abundantly. The Adrienne Ross Show was produced and edited in the BMG studio. The music was provided by Kevin MacLeod. Find more episodes of The Adrienne Ross Show at thebmgnetwork.com and major podcast platforms. Be sure to tune in regularly. You don't want to miss even one episode.